be doing my one on expressionism.
Hi, my name's Millie, and mine will be on epic theatre.
Hi, my name's Daniel. I'm going to be doing classical theatre.
Hi, my name's Sophie, and mine's going to be on modernism.
Alright, for my one, expressionism, I explained what it is in 6 points. So these are the signs that you will find when you watch a play which has expressionism in them. So atmosphere is the first one, meaning that when you watch a play with expressionism in it, it will always have a dreamlike atmosphere. Examples of this were the set will be very dark. There are gloomy colours like maybe like dark blue and stuff, and the lights will be in random places. There won't be a pattern of lights. Like there might not even, if someone's speaking, it might not even be on them. It might be somewhere in the background, and that will help to the dreamlike atmosphere. Also, when the characters speak, it's never a conversation. It's more like saying a word and then random awkward pauses, and then they speak again, and that helps like a dream. The next one is setting. So they wanted to avoid anything that could relate to real life. So it was always based on the genre. So if it was horror, if it was a horror genre, everything would be covered in blood. That's just not realistic. Yeah, so the lighting would be red for blood, stuff like that. Objects would also be portrayed as something else. So if you said, oh, that person's just sat on a couch, they might be sitting on like a piece of debris from a plane or something. Third one, plot. It was always broken into episodes. It never actually had no relevance to the play. So they might even, that would help with the dream atmosphere. So they might have a random scene that had nothing to do with the play, just to show that it was like a dream, and sometimes it doesn't always make sense. Next one is characters. The characters have no names. So if the two main characters were played by male and female, the male would be called male, and the woman would be called female. So like female now speaks, stuff like that. Yeah, characters would also look strange. So maybe they would have a misshaped head or something like that, or some of the plays they had like big spears stuck in them as they were going on, but they weren't. It didn't have any relevance to what their character was. Dialogue. There was never really dialogue, conversation between characters. It would every time a character would speak, he would speak as if he was presenting a monologue, a poem, or like a letter. Style. The style of acting was purposely taken away from Stanislavski. It wasn't by. He did this by purpose because he didn't want it to be realistic at all. Yeah, so every time a character would speak, it would be really strange, because when they would deliver a line, they might deliver it in a creepy way. Like an example of this is they used, every time a character would speak, they would act like they were a puppet, stuff like that. Yeah, so that's in 6 points. Next slide is an example of a practitioner who used expressionism. His name is Oskar Kokoschka. He was born in Austria, and he lived in poverty for about 10 years. He had a passion for painting, and then that was his passion, and he was very poor, so he found his love for painting, so he got money, and then supplied for his family, and then he also, during lessons, he wouldn't skip art lessons, but he'd skip every other lessons and start reading playwrights, and that's where he found his love for playwrights as well. So he wanted to make a play. So in 1909, he published his first play, Murder, the Hope of Women, which was first shown outside the theatre of Kunstgau in Austria. It's a really weird story. It's based in medieval times, where the man goes to a castle to find a woman called Maiden, and he really wants to fall in love with her. So what they do is they look at each other, and then she randomly just decides to stab him. So he dies, and she goes off, and then she wants to fall in love with him again, even though he's dead, which means it's like a dreamlike atmosphere. She goes up to him, and he comes back to life all of a sudden, and then he grabs her, and he sucks the life out of her, and makes him stronger, and then he just walks off in a big ring of fire down to hell. It's really weird, but yeah, but this play shows expressionism because obviously they were called man and woman in the script. The lady was described as a big wild beast, which makes no sense because the woman had like horns and she was really hairy, which women don't look like that sometimes. So, so that's like a dreamlike atmosphere, and it's not realistic at all. And he also walked into a ring of fire, which could never happen. So, yeah. And it was, next slide. It's one of the most well-known plays from Oscar for the first time Expressionism was used. So it's Expressionism because it used lighting in the stage. It had an abundance of unusual colours that didn't make sense and it didn't fit the play at all. So maybe when he was going into the Ring of Fire, it was like the atmosphere was really nice and colourful in a way. The colours didn't relate to the theme of the play at all. The costumes were really disturbing and violent, and it was just it was not very nice to look at. Like loads of the reviews saying that it was violent and it wasn't a nice thing to see. Like the women were dressed up, some not wearing many clothes, and all of them were like scarred, had like singes on them, stuff like that, even though they weren't supposed to be like that in the play. One of the reviewee in 1917, Frankenfurter Zeitung, said that it was disturbing and the scenes consisted of pictures of people screaming. Other reviews also said that it lacked quality of dialogue and it just relied on pictures showing what the play was about. You.
Okay, so mine's about epic theatre. I went the wrong way, sorry. Epic theatre was mainly done by Brecht, Brechtian theatre. He focused on political, social and moral being, and he wanted the audience to consider the meaning behind the performance. So he often used things from that time to perform and then get a response from the audience to question kind of their existence and their surroundings through political, social or moral. He often used the V effect or alienation, which was used to distance the audience from their own lives. So when they were sitting there, they'd watch it and they'd make them question their being, but they'd be detached from their own existence and be looking on someone else's. He used the dropping of the fourth wall as well to do this as well. So it involves the audience and the performers to interact, which connects the audience and the performers on a different level. So they're not just an audience watching the performance, they kind of become the performance as well, which totally takes them away from their own natural state and their own natural life. He was well known for hating anything other than theatre. And there was a quote that said that he saw it all as a huge waste of an audience. He wanted people to question and challenge and not simply accept and enjoy. So a lot of performances you can go and you sit there and you walk out and think, wow, that was really amazing, that was really good. What a wonderful performance. However, with Brecht, he wanted them to sit there and then be able to walk out and go, what just happened? And what does that mean? And what does this change in my life? He didn't want them to enjoy it as such, he wanted them to question it completely. Another quote was basically theatre aimed to be escapism. The audience could forget about their lives for a while and not to think. So despite the fact that he wanted them to think and question the performance, he wanted them to walk in and completely forget the outside world. Another thing was the idea was for the audience to believe the story and the characters in the play were real. So it was so dramatically realistic that it totally encaptures everything about them, again making them forget their own natural life. Techniques he used was narration, which was used to remind the audience that what they are watching is a presentation of a story and it isn't real. So even though they sat there and it seemed realistic to them and they got involved, there was always this constant reminder that it wasn't real life, and that they could just leave at any time. They often spoke the stage directions as well, and not just did them. So, for example, if the stage direction was to walk to stage left, they would say it as they did it, which also brought in the reminder of it wasn't real, which made it all very dramatic and quite disturbing as well, I think, because they had a bit of undeciding whether it was true or false what they were watching. They'd often use direct address, which was my example from Dropping the Fourth Wall, which was speaking directly to the audience, which destroys illusion of reality as well. The example from this is Grusha pleads to save baby Michael in the Caucasian chalk circle by Brecht, when she says, "I brought him up, shall I also tear him to bits?" And then she pauses and then she says, "I can't." So that question is actually directed at the audience, and she wants a response of them. She wants them to give her an answer of what she should do, which kind of means that they're directing how the performance keeps going. A famous quote from Brecht was, "Within an epic work, as opposed to a dramatic one, one can, as it were, take a pair of scissors and cut it into individual pieces, which remain fully capable of life." So basically what he wanted is performance to be able to, in the end, be pulled apart and then put in any other way, and it would still make sense, relatively. My main example for this is Metamorphoses, which is an amazing script. It's unbelievable. It's basically surrounded about, it's a family of four, and it's very mundane and boring. They have a very so-so life. And Gregor, he is the main actor, and one morning he is turns into a beetle. Metamorphosis is actually the creation of going from a caterpillar to a butterfly, so something ugly to something beautiful. However, in this, it's the other way around. He's a human, but he then goes into something totally horrible. And the reason for this is to show that it's unrealistic. However, with it, through the story, this beetle shows the audience how mundane their life is. So the whole point of it is for them to walk out and question why they're in their job they are, why they're sitting in an office when they could be climbing mountains, for example. The reason it's called Metamorphoses is it's to juxtapose Gregor's life and the beauty of a butterfly. So generally it would be turning into this beautiful butterfly, whereas his life is mundane and it's turning horrible, so it's a complete opposition, so it's quite ironic that it's called Metamorphoses. That's me. Oh, and that's Gregor, the beetle, and it's a drawing, and you can see how abstract the whole room is, and on stage, that is literally what it's like. I know it's just a drawing, but on the stage, when you look at it, they've got bars that come up that kind of disorientate the whole stage. And then the references.
Alright, switch sides. We've got classical theatre, and the practitioner I've chosen is Christopher Marlowe. Next slide. So classical theatre is kind of a broad term. It can relate to really anything before, let's say, the 1800s. It can relate to anything from William Shakespeare and all that classical genre, and it can relate to ancient Greek theatre as well, with such playwrights as Sophocles, Aristophanes, and all those things, with the old Greek tragedies and comedies. Basically, they used different language barriers as well. Like sometimes it used rhyming couplets, and due to the limitations of the time, you couldn't really get lighting and sound effects in the 1600s. So it had a lot of limitations to it. So it had to be done in a certain way, through puppetry, through optical illusions, things like that. Next slide. Christopher Marlowe, he was an English playwright, and he was born in 1564, which is the same year as William Shakespeare. He studied at Corpus Christi College in Cambridge, and he wrote things like Dr. Faustus, Edward II, The Jew of Malta, and he was arrested several times due to several counts of blasphemy, due to his good piece, Dr. Faustus. But in 1953, he was stabbed to death by a guy called Ingram Fraser, and the source of this is Marlowe Society, which contains basically all the information you can find on Christopher Marlowe. So now we've got the tragical history of Dr. Faustus. It was a play that premiered in 1592, which was the year before his death as well, which is quite grim. And it follows Dr. John Faustus, a man who thought, you know what, I know everything there is to know on Earth. I need to learn the dark arts and black magic. So he decides to summon a demon called Mephistopheles, in order to help him achieve this great end. He exchanges his soul for 24 years of all the power of the elements. But the thing is, he kind of wastes all of his time, because 24 hours, there's 24 hours and he's exchanged it for 24 years. So it's basically 1 year for every hour in a day, which is exactly how long he thinks it is. And here we've got a picture, which is very small, of Arthur Darvill playing Mephistopheles in the recent Globe Theatre production of Dr. Faustus. And at the end, he gets damned to hell eternally. And here we've got some script extracts. Just, here we've got the chorus line, which is also very overdone in ancient Greek theatre due to telling the story. And here we have
modernism.
Here we have Faustus talking to Lucifer. Now, due to the limitations of the time, you couldn't exactly have this big red demon-like creature on stage, so it was done through different ways. It was done through puppetry, it was done through actual people performing the lines, and there we go. I think that's me. Short but sweet.
So I'm doing modernism and next slide please. So modernism is basically a more up-to-date theatre, and it tends to involve political views as well. So it is mostly 20th century and 19th century theatre and drama. So 20th century theatre is a period of great change with the theatrical culture of the 20th century. And modernism is a term which is applied through like various aspects of things that have happened in the 19th and 20th century. And modernism art, which also involves theatre, was often aiming to clear away like the rubble of the past and try and make it new and more futuristic and stuff. So it was basically taking the views of like Nazi Germany and changing it and seeing how it's sort of slightly similar to like political views now. And it was also closely associated with the ideas of the avant-garde, a term which was applied to artists that involved in introducing original and new experiments. Henrik Ibsen was one of the founders of modernism in theatre, and he was referred to as the father of modernism. And he was born in 1828 and he died in 1906. One of his most known plays was A Dollhouse, and that was, I've got part of the script later on in one of the slides, and it involves one of the most notorious characters, and that play was one of the most frequently performed after like William Shakespeare's some of his plays, and it was most performed in the 20th century, and Ibsen is often ranked as one of the most distinguished playwrights in European tradition. These are some plays that involve modernist dramas. So as you can see here, A Doll's House is one of them, and it has Nora Helmer, which has everything a young housewife could want, so beautiful children, an adoring husband, a bright future, and basically everything that a young woman would want. And another play on here is Breath, which was written in English sometime before it was sent to New York in 1969, and it was performed there. Master Olof, so Olof Persson was a Swedish clergyman who contributed to the Protestant Reformation in Sweden, and forms the subject of August Strindberg's favourite first major play. that is a screenshot of some of A Doll's House script. So, yeah.
Have you looked at forms?
We didn't
Is it still